Hi, I'm Caroline Howard, a biblical counselor and certified life breakthrough coach.
And I'm Chris Oneth, marriage and family therapist and executive director of Downey Park Counseling Associates.
Welcome to our next question, where we attempt to answer the questions of life through conversations in psychology and Christianity.
Remember, this is a place of discovery and definitely not the final answer.
Well, Chris is still writing notes.
Wow. Up to the last minute.
I'm just gonna call it like I see it, and anyone who's
That
watching
is
on
your
YouTube
interpretation. I'm still doing research.
sees it. He's a little nervous because of our topic today.
Oh,
because
wow. Wait a second. That's you're imposing upon me.
But you're writing.
You're projecting.
You're writing notes, and so I pretty much get to. It's Caroline take over the podcast day.
Okay.
So while you finish.
Wow.
Hello, Caleb, and welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
For coming
Caleb.
back.
I'm here.
Because if you didn't come back, we wouldn't have a producer
That's right.
to do this podcast.
And just to show you guys, I left you waiting outside in the valley heat.
He did. So we are on day one of a nasty heat wave.
Heat wave, yeah.
And I'm already dying.
Yeah, it's 100
Is it
already,
100
and
right
it's
now?
about noon 15.
Or 1:15.
Is it 1:15? No, it is 1:15.
It is
You're right.
1:15 on a Friday afternoon.
I don't know what time it is.
It's 100 degrees. It's supposed to be 107 today or 6 today, 107
Right on.
tomorrow, 108 the next day.
Nice.
We're melting. And Chris was late today, so Caleb
I was
and
not late. I was actually on time, and you guys are early.
That's true.
Okay.
That's fair.
But Chris is usually here. That's why we came early.
I was because
Everything's your fault today. I
pretty
told
much.
you.
But you know what? As a man, I take responsibility for that.
I warned you. I came with all the sass I have today because of our
Okay.
topic.
Boy, howdy. I'm just here to learn.
I mean, first I was gonna like ask some questions or bring up some things because you guys, Caleb, you just got back from doing some ministry work.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? Tell everybody what you did.
So I was at a camp for high schoolers up in the Santa Cruz Mountains called High Camp,
Nice.
Christian summer camp. So, I mean, it was just a week long. It's
Yeah.
something from a couple churches around here.
Okay.
But I was a counselor there, so I was with a cabin of 7 boys. and,
Oh, God
yeah.
bless you.
Also leading worship throughout the week, which was really
Awesome.
Cool.
That's really cool. How stinky did your cabin get?
Oh, quite stinky. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, you can kind of just leave the windows open and it
Okay.
all just flows out into
Okay.
nature. And yeah.
That's good. And I think if I read your social medias correctly, this is not the first year you've done this. You've done this for a few years?
Yeah, this was my second year being a counselor.
Okay.
And then before that, I did 4 years of doing the camp video there.
Oh,
Yeah.
very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just something you keep going back and doing?
Yeah, I love being
Awesome.
up there. It's an amazing community, amazing experience.
Yeah.
Just really cool. Beautiful
What-
place.
In
Yeah.
anything in particular that really, like, when you say I love being up there, what stands up? What stands
That's a
out?
good question. Like, it's part of it is the beauty of the nature and the natural space that you're in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
God's creation.
And it's just the people that are there, like the counselors I get to work with, and just like the community that's built there. But then there's something just different about being away from everyday life, too.
Yes.
Being in kind of a community of people who are intentionally there to draw close to God and meet Him in worship, and it changes everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, I mean,
That is
and by the-
holistic.
it is.
It's awesome.
If you think about it too, right? You go to a camp like that and everybody's away from everyday life and you really just have all this time to focus on God for an extended amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, you can't
You're
really
doing
get
fun
you
stuff,
can't really
too.
get that in the city. Totally in nature, you can.
You can 100,000% get that in the city. I took a weekend in San Francisco one time. Stayed at
Okay.
the very top of the hotel I usually stay at.
You know what?
And
That is
it
absolutely true. That is true.
I cried because I was like, I'm all alone. And then I was like, but wait, this is my time with Jesus. So it was so good. I walked around and looked at people and ate great food. And
Isn't that something?
that does it for me.
So I did you're right. I did have a moment like that in the city years and years ago. We're talking what feels like centuries ago. My mother-in-law took my wife and the kids to Disneyland. And it's when they were still old enough to like Disneyland.
Okay.
And so I took it upon myself to have the opportunity to go to San Francisco for a day on my bicycle.
Oh.
So a number of stories came out of that. I went on BART and I went out to, I climbed this one hill and huffing and puffing. It was in the Presidio, and I hear this radio behind me, and this guy on this fixie passes me like I'm going backward. And he gets up to the top of this platform, but this rest thing where he's looking at. It's a beautiful view of the Golden Gate from the Presidio, from the San Francisco side.
Yeah.
And so I stopped too, but I don't want to seem like I'm gassed, so I'm trying not to breathe hard. Which is really, which may tie into our topic today.
Oh, it totally will.
The other way I totally experienced God was I went to a market, and it was at the end of Golden Gate Park toward the bay, or not the bay, I'm sorry, toward the ocean. And I went to a market, and I got a bottle of wine, and I got bread and salami and cheese.
Heck yeah.
And I took my goods, and I put the bottle of wine in the sports bottle holder.
Okay.
So there's this guy on a bike with a bottle of wine.
That's what that's for,
That
right?
guy's, So I went to the, it's not a boardwalk, it was a beach walk kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I sat there, and I didn't have a glass to drink the wine, and I didn't want to just pull from the bottle because I do have some class.
Well, as long as you leave it wrapped in the brown paper bag,
absolutely.
you're totally
I'll
good.
fit right in. So I cut I had a sports or a water bottle, plastic one, and I cut it to where I could use it as a glass because that's more classy, obviously. So I'm pouring myself wine, and then I'm eating cheese, and I'm sitting on a bench, and a guy a few benches down is playing the bongos.
Oh, wow.
And I'm striking up conversations left and right with some of the people that pass through, and I'm pouring wine for other people because I'm not.
But what are you pouring in it? You only have one glass.
No, but they
bring their own glass?
They cup their hands.
Okay.
And
You're like, here, open your mouth. I'm going to just spouting it in.
Exactly. And so
it was like communion almost.
I sat and talked with a dude about who comes there and just kind of decompresses himself, and he was awesome. And then he moved along, and then a couple dudes who were essentially backpacking down the coast. And they had a couple dogs with them, and they were staying north of the Golden Gate Bridge in a campground. And I said, well, I mean, I don't know, any possibility that you would stay, just kind of find a place to sleep in Golden Gate Park? And they said, no way, that is not safe. No. And so I was like, okay, well then I'll scratch that off my list, and I won't do that. But it was an amazing experience. It was a total gift from the Lord. So all right,
now you'll stop bashing the city.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Wow.
Eva, beware of the city.
Well, it is getting worse, but it's still amazing.
Well, it's dark and it's cold and it can't be controlled. It is mad.
Isn't that society in and of itself?
That's a line from Evita.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know we were. So I often think I'm the only, and this again, we'll get into our topic. We'll tell you our topic eventually. I'm the only girl in the room with a bunch of men. And
two.
Well, what constitutes a bunch?
Well, as much manhood as we have between Caleb and I could see your point.
Okay. If there's 2 bananas, you're going to say I have a bunch of bananas.
I don't know about that.
Caleb agrees.
I agree. It's a bunch still.
What are you doing, Caleb? Come on.
It's 2-1. Hey, a bunch
Brothers
of us
unite.
agree.
Yes. Okay. For the sake of.
Okay.
All right.
No, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, and I broke into a song from The Sound of Music.
A female deer.
And
Yeah.
these two sang the whole thing with me, and it was
Thank
so
you.
awesome. And
I love musicals. What can
those
I
are
say?
manly men who can sing musicals.
Awesome.
And now you're singing Evita.
As Billy Joel says, I learned that I could dance and still look tough anyway.
See, there you go.
Well, maybe there's a manly type of dancing and a womanly type of dancing.
Maybe there's just dancing.
No,
Do you think?
I tend to
okay, so since we keep going back and forth with this, I was going to ask you some questions about what you're getting ready to go do, but we'll save that for next time.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll just jump in.
Okay.
So our question today is, what is masculinity?
Yes.
And
how did we get on that? How did this even come up?
you're the one, you said it.
Did I?
Okay, so here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting is someone had just sent a YouTube video to me called The Masculivin'.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh my gosh, this is all about masculinity and it's like really good. And her and her husband were watching it. And I watched it and I was like, oh, wow, for me, it was powerful.
Right.
Sent it to my husband, who was like, this is really hard for me to watch, but this is really good.
Why was it hard for him to watch?
We'll get into that.
Okay.
And then we were talking about topics and you said, what is masculinity? And I was like, oh, heck yeah, because I'm all fired up right now about this.
Okay.
And that's why I have all
And you sent the video to me.
And I sent the video to you, and you did not have the same response that everybody else did. And so in our office on Tuesday, there was a lot of smack talk going
Independent thinker. No. Okay, so I have to say that was, I had watched half of it.
You had.
And I had some like concerns and skepticism. And then I watched the other half of it and let's just put it this way. There is stuff I totally agree with in that video, and there's stuff I'm like, meh. Okay. So there you go.
You were a little upset that it was all produced by women.
Well, okay. So the only reason I say that is because if you kind of flip that table and you have a bunch of men get together and say, let's make a video about what is femininity or toxic femininity or whatever, that might run into some opposition.
But they interviewed all men, and it wasn't all women. There were men, like the coach guy in there was a man. There were some other doctors that were men. But they didn't go and talk to women about what they thought.
Interestingly enough, and we will get into this, yes, I hope. And by the way, in this topic, we are not going to cover.
No,
we're not going to cover everything. No. There's so many. And listen, even in our other podcasts, I'll go back and listen, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to mention that, or I forgot to say this. It was interesting in that video that Philip Zimmerman, was one of the psychiatrist, he's a psychologist, they spoke to, and he is most noted for a very famous experiment back in the 60s called the Zimmerman experiment. And we will talk about that in relation to masculinity.
Okay. So let's dive in.
Oh boy.
Here we go. So I think wait, what noise are we going to use for that?
Yeah.
Whatever Chris comes up with.
A diving noise. A sinking.
Well, when I attempt to dive, it's usually splat.
Oh.
So
it could be this.
I'm not a swimmer diver person.
Falling into a large black hole. Anyway.
Caleb and I were just talking about this, my fear of water, because he threw himself in the pool at the age of 3 and swam.
Oh.
I almost drowned at almost the age of 3 and gave me a fear of water.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Okay.
We could save that for another day.
And you have a pool. Weird.
And I have a pool. I love to put my feet in it.
Should we start with a definition of masculinity?
We can, but I wanted to preface, see, I hit the mic and it freaks me out every time.
Don't do that.
I get so into it. Preface this by, we could get a little heated, but this is all not, I don't want to say fun and games. We're still friends. We may not agree.
Absolutely.
But that's why I love this, because I've had so many people with this is only our 5th one, but with
hordes, tens of people saying,
tens of people who have said, I love your podcast. I don't agree with you, but I love it. And I'm like, thank you.
But they agree with me? No. They don't agree with you.
No, people quote me from the podcast. I haven't.
This is actually true. This is actually true. I did talk to someone the other day.
I met fans.
They quoted.
It did not go to.
They quoted her twice. I'm like, I'm right here. No, I'm not so needy. It's fine. I'm like, awesome.
Well, here's the thing. It all depends on what they quoted. They could have quoted something sarcastic, I say, because there's never anything sarcastic that I say.
No, gosh.
Anyways, that to me is the biggest compliment, because I am not here to make people agree with me. And I am not here to put my foot down, not my hand, my foot down, and say, nope, this is what I believe, and I'm not changing how I think.
Right.
And you're wrong because you don't believe my way. I am here to be open-minded, to speak, and I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but you think the same way. We're here to speak what God has spoken to us. And what he's convicted us of. But we also know that can change.
Totally.
So.
As we we become sanctified and all that other stuff,
I say that because I might get a little redhead today.
Whatever that means.
Redheaded.
Okay.
Fired up.
As long as you don't strike me, because that would be manly of you. If you try to physically assault me, that would be more of a male characteristic. Not that women don't do that.
No, women do.
No, you as a woman potentially
I
you would
feel like
emotionally strike me.
I kind of- okay, I kind of feel like I might need to pull up my feelings wheel. I might have to work through some feelings to keep myself calm
In episode, yes.
through this.
Okay.
I'm feeling this way right now.
Grounding techniques. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, let's
have
get
to
let's
okay,
get going.
Well, let's give us the definition of masculinity.
Okay, so from Merriam-Webster, the definition is the quality or nature of the male sex, the quality, state, or degree of being masculine or manly. So then the question begs itself, well, what is manly? So I went to a Berkeley wellness thing website, and it said the definition of maleness clearly needs to be rooted in a firm and immovable foundation. One that works across time, place, and culture and is attainable for any man in any situation.
Okay, say that again.
That was a lot to say in the first place.
Can you say the end part again?
The definition of manliness clearly needs to be rooted in a firm and immovable foundation. That way it's not necessarily subject to an individual deciding, hey, I decide manliness is... And there might be a degree of that as we are individuals. Fair enough. Now, the definition of manliness is one that works across time, place, and culture and is attainable for any man in any situation. Okay. What we find is, again, across time. In other words, historically,
yes.
there are definite traits that apply to masculinity over a predominance over what might be considered feminine. Now, we'll get into that in a second. Okay. Also, across culture, there are predominant things applied to the male gender.
Okay. So now, since we're going time, place, culture, I'm going to go back time, place, and culture, biblically speaking.
Sure.
And so root all of that in biblical terms. What is the definition of a man in the Bible?
Okay. Thank you for asking that. The term, well, again, there's a number of verses in the Bible, including 1 Corinthians 16:13. Be on alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. 2 Samuel 10:12. Be strong and let us show ourselves courageous for the sake of our people and for the cities of God. And may the Lord do what is good in his sight.
It's interesting that that first verse you said, because I was listening to a podcast a couple days ago by our buddy, I can't remember his name, but that does Theology in the Raw.
Oh, Preston Sprinkle.
Yeah, on masculinity.
Yes.
Because I was getting my ammo.
Gosh.
Yes,
you were.
I mean, studying. I was studying, not ammo.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And he brought up that verse, and he said, well, again, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, he's saying man, but when he was preaching that verse, he was preaching to both men and women. He wasn't just telling the men to be manly. He was saying it to men.
So then would that apply to Job 47 that says, now gird up your loins like a man, I will ask you and you instruct me? I don't know. 1 Kings 2:2. I'm going the way of all the earth. Be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man. What's that?
Women can't gird up their loins.
Not in that sense.
So you would have to say it like a man. I mean, in that sense, you would have to say, do it like a man. So therefore, that makes me wonder, why would he tell men, gird up your loins like a man? He would have to be speaking to both men and women and say, hey, women, gird up your loins like a man would do.
Yes. Let's see. Even in Song of Solomon's, there is a clear demarcation between the qualities of men and qualities of women.
Okay. Well, Titus 2 does that as well.
Right. Outstanding among 10,000. His head is like gold, pure gold. He looks like clusters of dates, and black as a raven. My beloved is dazzling and ruddy.
What does ruddy mean?
Red.
Well, you said it. You totally said it like it was some man thing, like muscular. So I just. Okay.
Ezekiel 22:30. I searched for a man among them who would build up the wall and stand in the gap before me, and for the land, so that I would not destroy it. But I found no one. So
Because there were no men. So
I
we had to
know,
call the
but
women.
okay. So then there, and by the way, and here's why I think this is important.
Okay.
I think it vitally important as a manliness, even not just as a way of living, but also as a virtue. Because I think men in our culture need to target that virtue and attempt to strive for it. The problem comes when we add all these other things to it that, I don't know, maybe unattainable. Obviously, there's going to be masculine traits over feminine traits. There's going to be feminine traits over masculine traits.
Right.
As far as the 4 parts of ourself, emotional, spiritual, mental, physical, as I've said before, women tend to be emotional, spiritual.
Right.
We all have all 4 parts. We need that emotional, spiritual connection that women tend to have a little more in abundance than men tend to have.
Yeah.
Men tend to be more mental, physical.
Right. Okay. And so then that kind of, I would say that gets into the biological realities of man versus women.
Yes.
Right. And like men having the testosterone, to be more manly.
Yes.
So that I'm not arguing against that. I'm not arguing at all, but I'm not like saying,
I'm arguing.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Like there are
Sure.
definitely biological realities with the hormones and all of that. And I get that. And yeah, the 4 parts. I think the thing is that men have come over here and are just going to be, and again, we're mainly talking about masculinity. So please don't hear me ragging on men and saying women have it right.
Right. Exactly.
We're going to get into femininity, maybe a little on here, maybe down the road.
Right. Totally.
But men have swung the pendulum over here and just are holding on to the mental physical, and women have swung the pendulum kind of over here.
Good point.
And they're really,
Good
we
point.
both need to be all of us, men and women,
Yes.
need to be in the middle and have more of a balance of those 4 parts.
Okay, so let me address that.
Okay.
Because I think to some degree you're right. However, I think what happens in our culture is we run the risk of women wanting men to be more like women in the sense that they are more emotional, they're able to share those emotions, and I think that's important. That's what I do for a living.
That seems like stereotyping, though. It's
Well,
not
hold on.
that we want them to be more like women. We would just like them to be more attuned to their emotions.
Okay. So that's a good point, because I believe those 4 qualities, if women tend to be more emotional, spiritual, and men tend to be more mental, physical, they need to exist in juxtaposition as if pulling on a guitar string, right?
Yeah.
If it's not, if there's no tension to where women are the ones to take action, take over leadership where they feel like they have to make all the big decisions, everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the guitar string is too loose and it just doesn't work.
Right.
If it's so opposite that it's wound too tight, then the guitar string breaks.
Yes. Okay, I agree with that.
Awesome. We're doing right. We're doing all right.
But I still think that there is this mindset though of
Yes.
you want us to be more like women, and then you go and take on the man role. But I think that's I don't even know. I don't want to label that. But I think like that's an issue. It's just we just want men to be more emotional, spiritual, to be.
I would say that yes, but I think there's also a great desire for women in our culture to have men that act more manly. And what I mean by
we
that
want them
is
to be more tough and a safe place where we feel secure with.
exactly.
Okay, but I don't think we have to label that as manly necessarily.
Well, I think that's how we clump the virtue together.
No, yeah, I
Right?
mean, yeah, you're right.
Because the reason I think that important is because we do have an epidemic of passivity.
Yes.
Where women
Yes.
have had to fill that role.
Yeah.
And this is a guy talking that has been raised by a single mother, right?
Right.
And so, and I've talked to many women, and it's true, it may only be anecdotal, but many women who have had to take on, they've had to make the big decisions for the family.
Yeah.
They've had to encourage their husbands to get counseling or improve themselves or whatever.
Right.
And he is so passive. And hopefully we'll talk about this a little later too. There's a whole bunch of symptoms of passivity, and some of those symptoms are actually aggressive and aggression.
Yeah.
So
So
it's a
here's
frightening
why-
place for her to be.
Yes. So here's why I would say though, don't say that we don't say it. And I don't want to should. I don't want to should you either. That it's not the best way to label that is not women want men to be more womanly, because what's that going to make a man do? I'm not going to be more like a woman. They're going to go the other way.
What do you mean? Wait,
If
explain
if we say we want men to be more like women because we want them to be attuned to their emotions. If we label it that way, men are going to run the other way. Well, they're going to run when they hear emotions.
Okay,
anyways,
okay. So let me think about it in terms like this. I need my wife. I need her. I need her femininity,
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
I need to move toward that and meet her there. However, if I take on some of that femininity and I become more feminine, there may be long-term consequences that she and other women are not going to want or like.
Why? I just pictured you wearing a dress for some reason.
Well, again, okay, so I asked you a question the other day, and you were like, that's a tough one.
Oh, wait. What question was it?
It was, do you want, if you had a choice,
Okay. Oh.
A or B, right? Would you want a man that was more in touch with his emotions, able to cry, being present with you, or a man that knew who he was, took positive and healthy action, and knew had a study course for the direction he was headed? That's a tough one.
Well, and that's again because you're putting them on two sides of the pendulum, where I believe God created us to live in the middle of that pendulum, like where okay, because so let's get Titus 2, where it's the commandments of men, basically, like the young men or the older men need to treat the younger men. So I'll read it. Titus 2:1. But as for you, speak the things which are proper for sound doctrine, that the older men be sober, reverent, temperate, sound in faith, in
Yes.
love, in patience.
Yes.
Likewise, exhort the young men to be sober-minded, in all things showing yourself to be a pattern of good works, in doctrine, showing integrity, reverence, incorruptibility, sound speech that cannot be condemned, that one who is an opponent may be ashamed, having nothing evil to say of you. So we're looking at being sober, temperate, sound in faith, sound in love, sound in patience, sober-minded, integrity, reverence, incorruptible, and sound speech.
Awesome.
Like those to me sound like the four together. Like that's not, men, you should just be over here and sound-minded and know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You also need to be patient, loving, faithful, all those
So
other things.
So you're right. I don't necessarily see it as an either or. However, I need my wife to bring out to help enhance those other qualities in me. Right?
Yeah.
She needs something. She needs something in me that enhances those qualities in her. Otherwise, she wouldn't need me.
Well, no, and I'll agree with that, right? Because that's, why God created male and female.
Right.
He didn't create, if he wanted us all to be the same, he would have just
Booyah.
left Adam and
Right.
that would have been it.
Right.
So I get that. I just think that, okay, it's toxic it's become toxic masculinity.
You said it.
It did.
Toxic masculinity.
It's become,
okay.
because, so the Bible doesn't mandate men to act in masculine ways, nor females in feminine ways. It mandates us to act in godly ways.
Oh, true. But if God created
You
the
said
two,
but.
huh?
You said but.
True. And if God created the two, then there could be distinctives with each. And that's okay.
It is okay.
Right.
It really is okay. But
Yeah.
I think that we've divided it so much and we've lost
So
the
that's a good point. Why is that? In other words, so when you mention toxic masculinity, and part of toxic masculinity, and even the video talks about this, is a ridiculing. It's almost like I'm going to it's a ridicule to try and move boys and even men to adopt these certain characteristics, like stop being a sissy, man up, suck it up.
That I mean, I hear man up or be a man, and as a woman, like I hear a man say that to another man or a kid, it makes my skin crawl.
Okay, so now this is an interesting point because.
But I've seen it done in a toxic way.
Okay,
so that could be
fair enough.
So let's say like that could be the difference.
But
right?
now here's the deal. Here's part of the deal is the making fun of wouldn't be there if there wasn't some sort of virtue that it's trying to thrive. In other words, the shadow proves the sunshine, right?
Yeah.
So the sin is don't act like that. Don't act like a woman. Act like this. That's the sin. The virtue or the mark is there is a this. There is a this there that men do need to strive for. So if you even look at the type of ridicule that goes on, it's like, hey, don't sit there crying if you're hurt. Like, pick yourself up and make it happen. There is a scene in one of the latest Spider-Man. No, there's a few Spider-Mans before that. Anyway, poor Peter Parker is getting his butt kicked by the Sandman. And there's a scene where he's got this, and he's, again, the character of Peter Parker and the Spider-Man is like 15 years old. He is a kid, man, and he's up against the Sandman.
But he's Spider-Man.
But he's getting the Sandman. I know, right?
I mean, right?
Now, there is a moment.
Thank you, Caleb, for getting that.
Thank you. Yes. So in this scene, he has this building on top of him, and he's trapped under it, and he's scared, and he starts crying.
Yeah.
And he's crying, and he realizes no one's coming to rescue me. No one's coming to hug me. No one's coming to...
Makes me sad.
What's that?
That makes me sad.
But that's where he said, I've got to take care of this. And that is manly.
Is it though? Because, okay, let me not say it that way. Yes.
That's the moment he became Spider-Man.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I have to chime in real quick
Okay.
as the movie buff.
I was
Are you a
like, are
comic
you
book guy?
scared
Well,
over there, Caleb? We told Caleb he was our referee.
I just want to
today.
make sure that no one gets too mad, but I think, are you referring to like Spider-Man Homecoming with
I
Tom
think so,
Holland?
yeah.
That would be Vulture rather than
Oh,
Sandman.
thank you.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Vulture,
Just-
man.
just wanna
Vulture's
clarify.
scary.
We could have got some hate DMs there for that, Chris.
Ooh,
Thank
we
you,
could've.
Caleb,
I just
for
had to
saving
save
our
all
butts.
the angry comments and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is why we have Caleb.
This is why we have Caleb. I feel like we should
No,
probably...
you were going to add to the... Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, totally.
There is that transition period that says, oh my gosh. Now, I
Wait,
believe...
I had something to say
Oh, I'm sorry.
before
You're
you
right.
go on.
Go ahead. I don't want to...
Because you're like, that's manly.
It is.
Okay, what if I am trapped
Yeah.
and I realize that no one's coming and
Yep.
I'm crying
Yeah.
and I finally am like, I've got to get this off of me, and
Yeah.
I go, oh, and I lift it up.
Yes.
So now
So
I'm manly?
No, because... No,
Isn't
no.
that just strength?
So, yes, but let me add to this, okay?
I'm not a feminist. Can I just say that really quick?
No,
People
you
gonna be
are.
like-
You are. But there's different types of feminism.
Okay. I'm not a
right?
toxic feminist.
So there is conservative feminism. So
Okay.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Right. Thank
I just
you.
don't want to sound like this.
You're not a, you're not a man-hating feminist.
No, not at all.
Right.
No.
So, so at some point, our boys are going to need to head a family.
Yes.
And they are going to face some tremendous challenges, right?
Yes.
And so I even think, look at my own life. So I was raised by a single mom, right?
Yeah.
And so here it is now. Melanie, my wife, her dad is like Superman,
Okay.
right? Phil Jones. This is a guy. Oh man. This is a guy that like drove around, when he had this young family, he had no work and he drove around and he's finding places to work. And
That's
his
awesome.
one particular job that he did not know, and he's a construction background, but he
Okay.
does not know what he's doing at all, but he goes there anyway.
Wow.
Right. And he gets fired that day. But all that to say is,
tried.
and he is a guy that says, I take responsibility. So
He was a provider.
he was absolutely a provider. His name is Phil. And incidentally, my father's name was Phil. And my father was a homeless drug addict.
Okay.
And so that gets into then male passivity for me.
Yeah.
Right.
For you. Right.
So I spent a lot of time in my younger days actually being a victim. In other words, these circumstances would happen and I wouldn't see the way out of it. I would be sad about it and I would just be, and there were a few times when Melanie would say, Chris, that's not very manly. Right. And in that moment, it hurts, but sometimes it's gotta hurt. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we call upon the Lord to say, Lord, help me with this. Not, I will continue to indulge in this pain and not move about it.
Right.
But I will take this pain and let it inform me to where I need to go and break through. And when then that confidence by action is realized, right? That is a huge motivator, and it actually strengthens, in my opinion, manliness, right? So now let me get back to the statement about you lifting the beam off yourself. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's needed. In the 4 parts of ourselves, right? Emotional, spiritual, mental, physical.
Yeah.
Right. Let's back the lens up a little more into the sky, so we see the 3 relationships: relationship with ourselves, relationship with others, relationship with the environment or creation.
Yes.
Women, on average, because of their emotional, spiritual bent, are much more relational. They've got some
agree.
skills. You guys got some skills.
Yeah.
We as men need those skills.
Right.
Right.
I agree with that. too.
Men tend to be more environmental.
Okay.
Right. In other words,
Why is it I just heard the mental part when you said that?
We are
Men
mental.
tend to be more mental.
we are more mental. So we're in more environmental. So we will take our tendency to mentally want to put stuff in compartmentalized boxes, which is a male trait, part of masculinity, I think. We will be more prone to do something about something first, and then we will take that tendency and draw toward the environment. In other words, to have some sort of autonomy over our space and the things around us, right?
Yeah.
And so in a situation like that, women will draw toward others. Now,
so are you saying, do I hear you saying that when you're under the beam, no one's around because you haven't made any relationship? When I'm under a beam, all of a sudden everyone's there because I've developed these relationships?
Probably. Okay. Right?
Okay.
So in one sense, you're like, you as a woman may be like, I can't do this by myself without some sort of relational support.
Yeah.
Men will say, okay, I got to noodle this through and figure it out. Now, in either extreme, it's unhealthy, right?
Right.
Because women run the risk of, and this gets into potentially toxic femininity, is that they become so reliant on others that they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Men, by virtue of being a man, has a masculine quality of saying, I got this, right? That has unhealthy aspects to it too.
Toxic masculinity.
Right. But there's also healthy aspects to that.
Okay.
Right. So if your husband is having a hard time at work, do you want him home crying about, I can't go out the door because I'm so afraid of what's out there? Or do you want him saying, you know what? It's my responsibility. I have aimed toward this virtue.
No, you want him to talk to somebody about it as he's going out the door. He's working through the emotional part of it, but he's still doing the physical.
So then women tend to be to talk about it, then get moving.
Yeah.
Men tend to be just the opposite. We need to get moving, then we can talk about it.
So here's and then we're gonna close because
it's very masculine.
This is gonna be a really long conversation. So we're actually gonna do 2 episodes on it.
Yes.
So I'm gonna close this episode with this
good
analogy that Eric McClusiak, who's one of the counselors at Downey Park, he's amazing. Told me, and it's the 2 he says 2 holes. When you say it that way, it starts to get funny, so I say 2 ditches. You have 2 ditches.
Okay.
The 2 ditches analogy. It's on the 2 holes analogy.
The 2 holes. Hey, if you work in an office with Chuck Norris, never ask him for the 3-hole punch.
Oh my gosh.
I hope
That is a corny
I hope that's
dad
not
joke.
weird or offensive. I don't, now that I said it out loud.
Okay, so the 2 holes analogy is you know, husband and wife, man, woman.
Yes, 2
One is
hole.
in one hole, one is in the other, ditch,
Okay.
hole, whatever. I'll probably just say hole. You can all giggle when I say
Okay.
it with the hole. And the man they're both stuck in the hole. The man
Okay.
is like, oh, I'm stuck in the hole. This is how I get out. He gets out.
Right.
Okay, right. Or someone, sorry, Eric, if I'm saying this wrong. Someone throws a rope in. He sees the rope. He gets out.
Right.
He goes over to the hole where the woman or his wife is.
Right.
Throws in the rope. The woman grabs the rope and pulls him in with him. And here's the thing, because this is the physical mental, right? The man just like, I'm out and figured it out. The emotional spiritual is
Yes.
now the woman is sitting in the hole. She has already figured out how to get out.
Oh.
We already know how to get out. We want you as a man to come sit in that hole, and we want you to feel what we're feeling. We want you to be like, wow, this is a dark hole. Wow, this must be scary.
Okay.
Wow. And that's all. We don't need you to figure out how to get out of there. We already
Okay.
figured that out. So sit there with us, do all of
Yes.
that, and then we'll climb out together.
Okay. I have a curiosity about that.
You can.
Is it that you really know how to get out, or you don't know quite yet, but you need the relational kind of expression and exchange in order to help process that, so then you can make a move?
I will say for me personally,
Okay.
I already know how to get out.
That's a tough place, because then you don't need your husband.
I need the emotional safety, the emotional support
Okay.
is what I need.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that in our next episode.
All right. Yeah, come back. We're going to keep going. This is not over. Dun, dun, dun.
Thanks for joining us today as we continue our journey talking about life's many questions.
To stay connected with us, you can follow us at Downey Park Counseling on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow Caroline on Instagram at Relatable Caroline. And make sure you tune in next week for our next question.